Welcome to Learn MVC Step by Step Lecture 1. Today we will speak about basic components of ASP .NET MVC. We will explore model, view and controller and create a simple ASP .NET MVC application. Click on File, New, Project, click on Web, ASP.NET Web Application. Now you might be wondering, where are the other options like ASP.NET Web Form application, ASP.NET MVC application, etc. Now this is what we have new in Visual Studio 2013, that is ASP.NET 1. We'll talk about this ASP.NET 1 in detail after this explanation or after this simple MVC project. Click on OK. Now here we have an option to select template, so we'll take MVC, but again just below it you will find something like add folder and core references for web forms, MVC and web API. That means now in a single ASP.NET project you can have MVC, you can have web forms and you can have web API together. This is what ASP.NET 1, and I'll take MVC for now and I'll say OK. As you can see, MVC project template created default folders for us, that is model, view and controller. We'll start with controller. So right click, add new controller, MVC file empty controller, add. We'll name this controller as test. Please note, when I say test, let me do it again. I'll say right click, add controller, MVC file empty controller, say add. You will see that only default one is selected here. Controller is not selected. So let's remove that default one and let's put test. The reason why controller was not selected was MVC is also called as a convention based approach, where it is very important how we name something or where we keep something. Let me elaborate it. In MVC, it is very important that every controller must contain controller at the end, controller keyword at the end. For example, if you want to create a controller called as test, the name should be test controller. If you want to create a controller called customer, the name should be customer controller. So let me click on add now. So the name of my controller is going to be test, and it will generate a new class called test controller. So in simple words, every class which will inherit from controller base class and which will contain this controller keyword at the end will be called as controller. So it is very important. The name of class is test controller, whereas name of controller is test. Next, let's remove everything from here and let me create a simple method here. Public string get string. Now what is this method? Now we call this method as action method. Action method is something to which user will send request. Let me put return step by step schools. Every public method inside your controller will be called as action method, and end user will send request to these action methods. In simple words, in ASP.NET MVC, controller will be the one which will handle user interaction logic. You might be confused. Let's make it clear. Execute the application. It will launch our default browser, that is Chrome. And in the address bar of the Chrome browser, what we will do is we will simply put, it's taking time, it's here. In the address bar we will simply put /test. Test is nothing but it's the name of our controllers. /getString. GetString is nothing but the name of our action method. I'm again repeating, every public method which will be inside our controller will be called as an action method, and end user will be able to make request to this getString action method. Let's press enter. It will make request to this method. Let me put a breakpoint here. Hope so it will get hit. Yeah, it's here. I'll press F5 and you will see step-by-step schools in the response. If you check the view source, it's simply a string. It's not HTML. In ASP.NET Web Forms, whenever you make a request, in response you will always get HTML. But in MVC, it's not the case. In MVC, it's very easy to return something. You can return whatever you want. Let's close this. Now, what we did, we simply put something in the URL, pressed enter. That means we made a request, and that request was actually handled by this function, right? When we made a request by putting this in the URL, this request was handled by this method. That means someone is there who is handling our user requests. Okay, that's why we say it user interaction logic. In simple words, in ASP.NET MVC, controller will handle the user interaction logic, and once it handle the request, it will return something. It will return the response. That response may be string, or that response may be complicated HTML, that is view. So let's introduce the second component of ASP.NET MVC, that is view. We will use view when we want to return something complicated, something complicated like HTML, which will contain some images, some text boxes, etc. So let's do that. For that, we'll first stop this application, and then let's create one more action method, public action result get view. This time return type is action result, that means result of our action method, and we'll simply say return view, and the name of my view is going to be my view. Let's copy this name, and then let's come back to our folder structure again. If you see here the test folder, test means the name of our controller, right? So in Visual Studio 2013, as soon as you create a controller, a new folder will get created inside this views folder, and the name of that folder is going to be the name of your controller, test. And right now this test folder is empty. Okay, what I'll do is I'll simply right click this get view action method and say add view, and simply put view name as my view, because we are passing my view as argument here. And then uncheck this user layout page option, click on add. It will create a new file inside this test folder whose name is nothing but myview.cshtml. myview because we have specified the function parameter as myview. Now what will happen is, now when someone make a request to this get view action method, it will get handled and it will return a view which is nothing but this view. So here we will simply say first step by step schools page. Now let's test it. I'll press F5, and just like before in the URL we will put /test/get_view. This time we will put get view because the name of my action method is get view. Press enter and you will see that we got that view in response. Check the view source. Check the view source. It's nothing but your pure HTML. Okay, just like before. So controller will handle the user requests and it will return some response to the end user, and one of the response may be view. Now let's talk about model. Now model represents the business data. Whenever we get into a point where we want to represent a data in ASP.NET MVC, we will think about model. Model is nothing but it's our business data. So business data means simply a class with get and set properties. If you have customer table in your database, then you are going to have customer class here. If you are going to have TBL supplier in your database, you are going to have a supplier class here. So we'll create models inside this model folder, but in real time scenario, this model will be placed in a separate class library, in the same solution or maybe in some other solution. So for this demo, we'll do it here only. Right click this models, say add new. Oh, we need to stop it first. Right click this models folder, add new class. We will name this class as customer and click on add. Now inside this customer class, we will simply create some properties. Prop string customer name, prop string address. Done. Now we will go back to our controller, and in the controller first we will put our using statement using MVC, what is that, web application 2.models, and then we'll simply create a hard-coded customer here. Please note, we are creating a hard-coded customer object here, but in real-time scenario we will get this customer from maybe database. Maybe. So we'll say c dot customer name equal to Sukesh and c dot address equal to, let's put Mumbai, and then we have to pass this customer data to our view. So that we can do in couple of ways, and the most simplest one will be using view data. So I'll say view data and we'll put a key here. I'll say let's say my customer equal to C. Now once you put anything inside view data, that will automatically get available inside your view. It's not required to do anything other than storing inside view data. Simply create your model data, model object, get it from database or wherever, and simply store it inside view data. There are other ways of doing it also, but for this demo, let's limit here. Then we will go to our view, and here in order to display data, we will use razor syntax. What is razor? Let's discuss about that later. For now, just keep one thing in mind, that whenever you want to write some dynamic code, you will use this @ symbol. Okay, and here we will say customer. We will not get this customer here because again we have to put using statement. So we will go to top of this page, and here we will simply put @ using web application 1, just like before, dot models, and then here we will say customer. Now we will get that customer C equal to, what is that, what was that, view data of my customer. So let me put it here, and let's simply cast it to customer. Let's put a break tag here, and then here we will say we want to display customer name, right? So customer name, and again we want to display dynamic data, so we'll say @c dot customer name address colon @c dot address. Okay, definitely we need a break tag here. Now let's execute and let's see what exactly happens. So we have to put here get view, enter, and you will see that first step-by-step schools page, which is because of this line, and then a break tag, and then customer name is Sukesh, address is Mumbai, which is coming from our controller. So this is the simple flow of ASP.NET MVC application. We will make a request. That request will be handled by controller. Then controller will simply create model data, business data, and then it will choose the appropriate view and then bind that model to that view, and finally send that view as a response to the end user. Now let's take a small break, and then we will talk about something more about this ASP.NET MVC.